Welcome to After the Wedding. I'm your host, Sabrina Porter. In 2025, we celebrate 20 years of hosting lovely, joy-filled weddings here at Villa Sienna. In celebration, we decided to embark on an interview project about what happens after the wedding. Thank you for joining us as we hear from couples who've been building their marriage for many years. We appreciate how they've chosen to share their joy and challenges as they navigate their life together. Well, Jordan and Beth, I'm so grateful to have you here with us today. This is a new series, a project we're doing here at Villa Sienna to be able to find out a little bit more about real marriage. So a lot of focus on the wedding, and we love doing weddings at Villa Sienna, and they are beautiful and happy. But what happens after the wedding is pretty important too. And as you mentioned just a minute ago, Jordan, when we were chatting before, he said it's just the beginning, not the end, the wedding. So I have here today Beth and Jordan, Job, and say hello. Hi. And Jordan. So Beth has been working with us for quite a while, works in the finance arena. And Jordan works at GCU. He's been there
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
So tell me, Beth and Jordan, how long have you been married?
We've been married 20 years.
20 years.
In December, we hit the 20-year mark.
That's pretty exciting. 20 years already. Has it flown by?
Yeah. It's gone by really fast.
Well, tell me, how did you meet?
I was actually on a date with another guy and I had mentioned Jordan's name. I had seen Jordan maybe a week or two before at church. And I had never seen him there before. And so he caught my eye because he was really super attractive. And I was like, who is this guy? And I found out his name. And then I was out on a date with another guy and brought him up. And he's like, I know Jordan. Yeah, I'm buddies with Jordan. And he ended up passing my information on to Jordan. And that's how we got connected.
He was kind of being a gatekeeper. I wasn't really happy about that. It was kind of funny because Beth had kind of said something to him, and then he ended up talking to me. He's like, hey, this girl I went on a date with. And what's ironic about it is I had heard about Beth from another friend of mine. He's like, hey, there's this really, cute girl that goes to church. She goes to SU. She's a cheerleader. So I was like, well, hey, that sounds interesting. And so I had asked him, I said, well, why don't you give me her information? I'll reach out to her, no problem. And he's like, well, let me just find out, what information I'm allowed. Basically,
I'm going to try to give it a whirl first.
Exactly. He's like, I'm going to give this another try here, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, then maybe I'll give you your information. So he ended up giving her email to me. And so I emailed her, and then we kind of just started to communicate back and forth that way. And then it wasn't much longer after that, we went on our first date. And then as the old saying goes, the rest is history.
The rest is history.
That's right.
All right, so tell me what was the most surprising to you when you first got married? So try to think back 20 years.
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise about just the whole thing, the whole bond and the whole? Is there something that springs to mind at all? Or
for me, the first year, and I struggled with it for years.
Thanks.
Was how actually it's so silly. How to feed ourselves. I was like mac and cheese and ramen. I had lived with roommates before, but like you're eating when you're single is like super basic.
Yeah.
And so then we got married, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm going to cook dinner for us every night. And I literally didn't even know how to cook a chicken breast. And he's like, I want to eat healthy. And so I'm like, okay, what's healthy? And he's like, what about like a chicken sandwich with some avocado? And I literally remember this one time in the apartment. So I go to the store, get all the stuff, and I'm like cooking the chicken breast on like a griddle, an electric griddle. And I didn't even cook it all the way because I didn't know what I was doing.
Did he get sick?
No, he didn't get sick. He cut into it. He's like, it's still pink. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I wasn't taking any chances because I saw that she didn't look like she was really familiar with that process. Yes. So I was like, let me see what the middle looks like. And I think it was still a little raw.
Yeah.
So did you take over cooking then?
No. Beth did a good job. She's great now.
I'm good now. But I mean, we ate out a lot. Yeah, we just ate out a lot. And we were both working full time when we first got married. And so, I mean, you just have a piece of toast for breakfast on your way out the door. We'd both go out to lunch and then we get home for dinner and it's like the sky's dark and let's go get some drive-through.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Thank goodness for takeout.
But that was one thing I think early in the marriage that was like, I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah, and I think probably more for Beth just because she was kind of critical of herself of like what role she needed to fill in the marriage. And so it was like, hey, this is a big role, is to be able to, cook and clean, and obviously we've kind of gravitated away from that where it's not as critical. Obviously, it's not.
Doing those things are not as critical, or now you divide it up a little bit more?
Yeah, I think both. I think that there's not as much of a stigma around like this is your role as a woman in the marriage. And obviously, if some people have that as part of their thing, then that's great. Mm-hmm. I would say that for me, one of the things that was kind of eye-opening is just that you do kind of look at your parents, and this is kind of the model that I knew, and sometimes I didn't realize for a while that I'm not my dad. And that's not my mom. And the roles that they played aren't the same roles that we're going to have in our relationship. And it was kind of like that old adage of like you're trying to put a square peg into a round hole. And that's what I felt like we would do at times when we were first married, is that there was these ideas that we had of what our relationship should look like and what roles we should have. And I think that made us unhappy at times. And I think that once we realized that we needed to kind of make our own path.
What would be an example, Jordan, if you, because I completely agree. I think those expectations really set us up a little, and we don't have anything except our parents, maybe aunts and uncles and maybe a few community members. You have people that you've seen and you've watched how they do it. But like, can you think of any time when maybe an expectation really sent you the wrong way?
Yeah, I think that there was like different, I would say an example would be, hey, my mom would fold my dad's clothes and put it in his drawer. Well, Beth is amazing. She folds my clothes and doesn't put them in my drawer, but I'm thinking like, hey, how come these aren't in my drawer? This is the way that I've seen it done before. Like, what's going on here? And all of a sudden I start to kind of judge Beth on how good of a, wife she is off of something so silly as that. Where now I'm like, I don't want her to put my stuff away because I like the way I put it away better. Mm-hmm. But when we were first married, I think there was kind of this expectation of that type of stuff. The other thing is that like my father was more protective, I think, of my mom with certain things like, hey, like I don't ever want you to go to the store at night. And it was kind of one of these things where Beth would like to go do something at night. And it's like in a very safe community. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I think I'm supposed to be protective and tell her she can't do this. And I'm like, I don't really care that she does it.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, it's 7:30. I need to go to Walmart.
I'm going to go get this.
I'm just going to go take care of it. And he's like, you can't go. I'm like, are you going to go? Yeah. It needs to get done.
Yeah. And so some of that happened where I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't really care. And I'm not really fearful for her safety. It's just something that's been programmed in me. And it's no shade of my dad, but that's just how they operated. And that's how he felt. And I didn't feel the way, but sometimes I think I tried to make myself fill that role. So
Right. Well, because in your mind, you think, well, this is what a good husband is.
Yes, exactly.
So trying to figure out what is a good husband for us. What is it that works for us? Yeah.
Right.
That's very interesting. Okay. So, one thing that I love about you guys is that your families are so huge. Right? So how many siblings do you have, Beth?
I have 8. I'm the second.
You have 7 siblings.
You have 7 siblings. I'm the second of 8. And so I'm the oldest girl.
That explains a lot, actually, to me. So of how competent you are and how get it done and efficient and very, very smart, analytical.
Yeah. So I've taken care of all the youngers. And then, something else kind of unique about having a large family is I was a lot older when the youngest kids were born.
Right.
And so, I was a junior in high school when my youngest brother was born.
Isn't that amazing?
And so, it just, I don't know. I have such a different perspective, I think, on that.
Yeah, I have younger siblings that are quite a bit younger than me too.
And so
I've
always felt like my youngest two siblings, I've always treated them like as if they were my kids. Like,
and they probably also your second mama a little bit, right?
Oh yeah. And even so when we got married, I think Hannah was 8 and Jayden was 6.
Wow.
When
They're her youngest siblings. That's what you're referring to.
Right? Yes. And so we would, they would come stay the night at our apartment when we got married. There was times one year, we took them on vacation with us, our vacation, we're going to go to California, and we're thinking it might be kind of boring with just us two. Let's bring Hannah and Jay in. What were we thinking? But I mean, it was
good.
It was fun.
Yeah, we did
a little bit of perspective parenting.
Yeah, exactly.
See what that is actually like before you actually have children. So you got a big part then in your life when you got married and you had all those siblings. So family life was something that you had a way that went in your family.
Oh yeah. And so I'm super close with all of my siblings. My siblings are my best friends,
Oh, nice.
Well, I'm your number one best friend.
Yes. Before him, it was my siblings. Were my best friends. I loved hanging out with my brothers. In high school, their friends were my friends. We dated each other's friends, and
oh, that's so nice.
Yeah. So it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Wonderful. And then how many do you have? How many?
I'm one of 10. So 9 siblings, 5 boys, 5 girls.
So 18 between the two of you.
Yeah.
So that's a significant clan there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of similarities with Beth and I's upbringing.
Yeah.
Just kind of like the family dynamics and kind of the financial circumstances. And it's just a lot of parallels between the two of us. So it's interesting. I'm one of the younger ones, though.
You're on the younger
works
side.
perfect for me because I'm used to being babied and Beth's used to babying. So hey, it worked out, man.
Okay, well that's good. But now how does that? Because I remember at one point Beth mentioned that you actually live pretty near, in really close proximity to your family, Jordan.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I might be a little biased in my opinion of how it's going. Because it's my family. So yes, my brothers, I have 4 brothers that had lived real close. I have 4 brothers and all 4 of them at one point lived on the same street or one street over. One brother had moved. So I still have 3 siblings that live on the same street as I do. And my parents actually built a guest house on our property. So they live essentially with us because the guest house is attached. So it's just a hallway. You go down and there's mom and dad's house.
So, I mean, that's a lot of family. That's a lot of connected, interdependent living. And so what I was curious about is just how has that worked for you? How has that impacted your marriage? Does it cause stress on your marriage? Does it support the marriage? How do you feel like it's impacting the marriage?
I mean, I think it's supported it.
Yeah, a lot of times my parents like Beth more than me.
Yeah, I feel that.
If there's any time I'm coming to complain about something that Beth had done over the years, you're like, well, you better go make it right, because Beth is way above you in so many areas. So I'm like, you guys got a good point. I take my parents' advice, seriously. So
I love that.
And I think they're so... It's such a constant with them, they're there. You won't see any more supportive parents than his parents. They are the most amazing people. So they're such a great example, I think, to me. And they're so helpful and kind and welcoming of everybody and every circumstance and situation. And you feel no judgment with them. And
that's really key.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful because I know that the mother-in-law, father-in-law relationships sometimes can be tricky.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's really nice that you've never felt any judgment and that you feel complete acceptance. I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think one part that probably helps us is we're close, but we're not really into each other's business. Right. So like, I don't really go and visit my brothers that often. I mean, I see them driving by or whatever, but like,
it's more like, you know, they're there.
Yeah, exactly. So there's like, you know, their presence and their support is appreciated, but we're not really in each other's details of their lives.
Yeah.
So there's not much. Yeah, exactly. Right. So we don't, Right. And so there's not a lot of drama that gets created because of it. Other families might have that to where it creates a rift in the family. But with us, it's like, we're cool with each other. We love each other. We're close, but we're not in the details of day-to-day life.
All busy.
Yeah.
Right?
We're, you know, my brothers are business owners. I'm busy with my work. And so we're all doing our own thing with our own families, with our own jobs, careers, kids. And we don't really get into too many, like we don't get into each other's lives that much in that regard. And so, because otherwise you get people where they're like competing with each other. And I don't know, it feels like everything that somebody does, it could be seen as a slight or something like that, but we don't have that issue.
Right. Yeah. I feel like your parents, well, my parents too, they don't impose themselves on us at all. You know, so if it's like a crazy busy week for us, I mean, sometimes I won't even see his parents live with us, literally. Like it's a door
down the hall. I might not see
and I may not see them for 5 days, you know, until I take the time to go in and visit with them and catch up. But they are not imposing on us at all.
Well, I'm sure with 10 children, they're probably pretty happy that you all are doing.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I was like, they don't have time to do our business, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So that's a beautiful thing. And have you had any downsides of having such close family? I mean, maybe you're saying you're not seeing each other all that much. It's more just that they're there. I mean, you probably see each other
I think
regularly.
Fortunately for us, I feel like because I'm one of the younger ones in my family and I've kind of seen some of the downfalls with my older siblings that I feel like Beth and I have kind of been able to identify those and avoid those.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some things get at each other and have drama and have rifts and wedges, you know, placed between families, at least on my side of the family. And we could kind of see from both perspectives of what the individuals did right and what they did wrong. And so I think that we've kind of been able to learn from other people's experiences. So we haven't had too many drawbacks from being close proximity and also being close with our big families. I don't know, what do you think, Babe?
Yeah, I agree. I think
what is really
also we've also both kept ourselves very busy.
Oh yes, you both been.
You know, so I've since we've been married, I've always worked full time, and you know, so we just, I don't know, haven't had time to get into
time. You're too busy to be in other people's business.
Well, and that actually leads to my next question a little bit about your vision for when you first got married. Do you think you had a kind of a common vision for how your future would go, or was there a lot of negotiation? I mean, how did that unfold for you? Just sort of the vision for your future.
Well, I think we both knew, you know, we wanted to be married. We wanted to have kids.
Yes.
And we wanted to have financial stability and be close with our family.
Those were kind of your goals.
Yeah. And I mean, that's right where we're at. So it kind of just happened. I don't know. It's not like we've sat down every year, and we've never been like super goal setters. But I think the vision, you know, when we were dating and got married, this was the vision. I feel like we're living it right now.
Well, congratulations for that. Because I will say, I think those 20 years, that's, you know, even though you may not have sat down every year, there's an awful lot of work that goes into that, an awful lot of compromise and an awful lot of putting others' needs above your own.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that we've just naturally been able to do that to complement one another.
Yeah.
And maybe allow one person to focus on what their goals are more and take a back seat, or support that other person more.
Tell me a little more about that, because I know the spacing of your children, and you've had a little, been a little, I don't know. Tell me a little more about that.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to
share in there? When you say that you've been able to take front seats and back seats sometimes. Yeah, because I think that's in today's modern world.
I think it started off with Beth. It's just like, as you kind of mentioned, she's super smart, right? Very capable.
Smart and capable.
So, any place where she's worked, she's been able to move up pretty quickly. And, I think that as like the male in the relationship, a lot of times you're kind of seen as, at least traditionally, as the provider, right? Financially providing. And there's times where Beth has been making more money than me. And I've always been happy for her. I've never been jealous of her, which is fortunate. But I've never felt like I ever put like an obligation on her to make more money or to move up. I'm like, hey, if you do good, great. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, I support you. And of course, if she's doing well with work and providing financially, it does alleviate some of the pressure that I have to be able to provide. But it's never been something that I felt like I couldn't meet those kind of obligations to provide for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just
partnering in it. Partnering in that aspect.
Yes. Jordan's always been like so supportive and encouraging.
I love that.
In my role with working, like anytime, maybe I had not necessarily a conflict, but like an issue at work that I wasn't sure how to deal with. And it like gives me all this anxiety. It's like, I'd call him and he'd like coach me through it, and I'd feel so good. And okay, I can go and do it. Or, if I was, hey, this opportunity's come up, what do you think? I kind of want to go for it. Are you on board? Like, he's always been so supportive.
Yeah, 'cause you got to account for like childcare or other extracurricular activities with kids. And so, of course, if she's working different shifts or hours or whatever, would have to travel, then of course I'm going to have to adjust what I'm doing to make sure that that's, a possibility for her. And so we've been able to do that. And it hasn't, I don't know, I think it's just a decision that I made, and I've just stuck with it. And it's not that hard. Once you kind of commit to something, then you just figure it out. I think if you're not really committed to supporting somebody, it could be challenging because, when you're having to stay late or, go pick up the kids late, and you're wishing in the back of your mind your spouse is doing it instead, that could probably start to create a rift between the two of you. But, I never, I never had any like negative feelings towards Beth where I maybe had to adjust something I was doing. I think one of the examples would probably is when we moved to Tucson to be able to, because she had another role or an opportunity with the company she's working for, and it was going to pay her more money and kind of give her a good promotion. And
we would have to move to Tucson.
Yeah.
And he was.
So I quit my job.
So
and
he
moved
quit
to
his
Tucson.
job, got his real estate license.
Yeah.
Went to go sell homes in like 2007.
Perfect timing.
We know how that was.
No, it was great for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh my goodness.
And then when people started to come into the model homes where I was at, kind of selling houses, and they said, hey, do you guys have a 2-for-1 sale? Then I knew that the business was cooked for the time being, right? It was like, okay. So then I ended up moving back to Phoenix and going back and working at Grand Canyon University. And of course, it worked out well for me, but it was something I was willing to do to be able to support Beth. And I didn't really have, I don't feel like I gave too much pushback. It was like, cool, it's what you want to do. And that seemed like a good opportunity.
Let's do it. Let's try it. And
I mean, it sounds really like you both did such a beautiful job in putting the us, and putting the unit, the marriage and the family ahead of anyone's individual. We're supporting Beth in this role right now, and there may be other times when Jordan needs a little, Beth's, as a matter of fact, you're doing a little bit more on the home from right now, right?
Exactly.
I think I feel like that's the perfect model for modern marriage myself, just because of what the world is now. The world is, women are working, and it takes 2 incomes.
Yeah, in most cases it does.
And so I think it's really nice when you can figure out how to partner like you guys have.
Yeah. And I also think like
beautiful.
Even if people didn't have to, both work to be able to make ends meet, I think it's important to be able to have that option as a woman to be able to go and do something, right? Hey, I want to go work. Well, you shouldn't have to be restricted because of some type of conditioned terms or something like that. Like, oh, well, you're the woman, you should stay home.
Yeah, some ideal.
I think everyone's going to want to marry Jordan now after that. Because I know.
You
never decide you're done with it.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's how it works. She's the major catch. So
I do think it's important for women to kind of figure out what your role is, and okay, if something were to happen to Jordan, well, then what would I do? I need to come up with some way to take care of myself. So I think that there's a lot of ways that can be done, but
yeah, it works for us.
Yeah. Well,
I think that's one key.
Yeah. We've done what works for us, despite what other people say. Like, we don't really care too much about other people's opinions on it. Cause
all of my siblings, I think for the most part at the time, all my brothers were the only ones that worked and their spouses didn't. My dad worked, my mom didn't. And so there could be kind of like some social pressures there. Like, hey, Jordan, like, you're kind of a loser, like you're not providing, well enough where your wife can just stay at home. And, I think those thoughts kind of crept in, but at the same time, I was like, I don't care about this.
Yeah.
I don't care. And yes, there's been times in our relationship where we could have survived off of one income, but at the same time, I felt like what Beth was doing gave her a lot of fulfillment. Absolutely. And so it wasn't just the monetary stuff.
So good at it.
Right.
And so competent and just really
exactly
amazing.
And so that's what I appreciate is that she enjoys what she's doing. I love the fact that she enjoys it and gets her to be able to get away from, the day-to-day operations of being a mom and be able to go and, put your energy towards something that you feel like you're making a difference. Mm-hmm. It's something that you enjoy doing. Because Beth has always enjoyed what she's done. And I think that's very valuable for her and important in our relationship is that she's able to do things that she enjoys doing. And part of that happens to be working. So
I love that. I think that's so insightful, Jordan. And it really does. Life is long and, there are so many different chapters and there may be a chapter when all your kids are grown and Beth has all this energy and there may be, there may just be some different things that happen. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to have had all the experiences that you've had and all the preparation and all the opportunity to work and all the opportunity for growth. Self-development.
Right. Yeah. And I've never felt like pulled, like my, soul was never like, no, you just need to stay home with your kids. Like
that didn't fit for you.
Yeah. I've just never had a strong feeling one way or another. And so since it's worked for us, mm-hmm.
it's been something that we've had to labor over. It was just more like, hey, this fits. It's natural.
In a way. I mean, for some people, I guess it's really easy. You're doing this and I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people do,
They have to navigate it.
Yeah, navigate it. I've always worked and I think it is it's been really good for me.
Yeah, and you love it. Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I think, and I love my children as well.
Yeah, or you're a great mom, great kids.
So,
you could do it all.
Well, you can only do it all, I think, when you've got a great partner.
Sure, yeah, I agree.
When you're both doing it all.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask you something else about, have you had anything you can think of that you've just had to sort of accept about the other person that you've just, you've worked on it. You've continued to chisel away to try to get him to change in this way. But then you finally realize, I think I may just have to accept this.
That's why this is the one I'll go first because Beth probably has a much longer list. So the one thing that I kind of mentioned to Beth in the past is there's piles of things that accumulate. And I'm not one for piles of anything. Now, granted, I create them, but, way I was raised, my mom did everything for my dad. So I'm still fighting that, right? Where I'm like, hey, I made a mess, you clean it. You make a mess, you clean it. But it's just more of just like piles of stuff like mail. And so that was one of the things where mail will just kind of pile up. I think it's been open, maybe not been open. And then if I do open it, I'm kind of getting in trouble because she has some type of system. Right? So I'm not really allowed to touch the mail. I have on
It needs to be
occasion.
allowed to sit there in a
Yeah, it needs to sit there for 6 months, and then when we get collection calls,
behind a cabinet.
yeah. So
Then I put it in a drawer.
yeah, like some people like to collect like baseball cards, right? So we're a little different. We like to collect junk mail and good mail. So that's kind of where we're at. And so, anyways, we've had some differences over the years of what the heck is this? Like, why is this over here piled up? And Beth's like, don't touch it. I'm gonna get to it today or whatever.
So are you?
I'm so busy because I'm working.
Yeah, and the way that I accept it is just ignore it, So I honestly, it doesn't really get under my skin anymore. I just see it. I'm like, yeah, that's Beth. And sometimes I can almost look at some of the stuff and just laugh and be like, that's just Beth for you.
She just,
Because she's so great with all this other stuff that it can also almost become kind of endearing.
Yeah.
So, so
you're headed in that direction. It's
so I'm good with it, But at one point in time, there's like those little things like that where you're just like, okay, I would like to change this, and it could get under your skin, but you realize that this is something that they're probably not going to change anytime soon, or it's more difficult for them than it would be for you. Because like to me, it just seems easier. Like just throw it away. Like,
right.
But for Beth, it's like, no, I need to stay organized, but I don't have enough time probably to allocate the resources to make sure that everything's like documented correctly. And I will later, and I will get to it. And she does. She always comes through, which is sometimes not as quickly as I'd like her to.
Years later.
That would be the only thing.
So it's kind of like you went from super irritated, a little less irritated, and now I'm just accepting.
Yeah, just kind of like, yeah, it's okay. And it wasn't like, and I think that probably the key for a lot of the stuff that I've learned is like, you can't force yourself in the moment to like not care all of a sudden.
Right.
But I think that you could kind of put it in your mind that like, hey, this is something that I don't want to care about because it really isn't that critical. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm not going to divorce Beth because she doesn't do a good job filing the mail.
Right.
Like, we're going to get along just fine.
Yeah.
And the quicker I can get over this, probably the better the relationship we're going to have. And so I think that you got to recognize that and kind of almost like put some type of message somewhere so that you can naturally gravitate to becoming the person that you really would like to be, and have some patience with yourself as you kind of gravitate to the person you'd like to be. So that's kind of what's worked for me.
Yeah, I love that. That's great insight, Jordan. That's
Thanks.
really tremendous. Okay, Beth, you have something?
Yeah, she's got it. Did you write these things down? She wanted to make sure she covered all. She's been waiting a few years to share this.
So I remember like that the first year kind of struggles. And we just lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not like there's a ton of space, but like he would come home from work and just like take his shoes off. They'd be in the middle of the floor. Like his stuff would just be everywhere. And I'm like, can't you just undress in the closet or something and put it away? And so, I mean, there was definitely months where I was quite annoyed. I'd be like picking up his shoes, and then I'd make the comment to him, I don't know why you can't just put these in the closet. And then one day I just had this thought that was like, go ahead and be irritated at him again. It's clearly not changing, or just put him away. And it's, an act of service. And this is one of the ways that you take care of and love him. And so, that's kind of what I've done. And so I've always like, done his laundry, put his clothes away. It's really been in the last few years where he has started putting his clothes away. Like I'll get them all folded. They're all out on the counter, and he puts them away. And the first time it happened, I was like, why did you do that?
Who are you, and what have you done with my husband?
And
Really low.
This is
Right?
one of the ways
How he's amazing. He puts his clothes away.
I don't do a lot to
So that's also the key. Start with the bar super low when you're first married, so that if you just come close to where you should be, it looks like you're doing amazing things. So it's kind of pathetic, really. We should probably edit this out. That like my great accomplishment was putting my own clothes away.
One. Yeah. So that was one thing early on where I was like, I'm just going to accept this about him.
Yes.
But then something that like took me a little longer to accept was that he likes to have a lot of relaxing time.
Okay.
After you're done with work,
Right.
he likes to relax.
Right.
And when I'm done with work, there's like the list of 20 things that needs to get done, and he likes to relax.
She's basically saying I'm lazy.
Frustrated.
You would want to manage that time.
Yeah, like to come and help me. But then when he'd come and help me, we would like not get along while we were helping. So I'm like, why would I have you help me when we're not getting along when you're helping me? So I've just accepted, like, you relax. I'm going to do these things. And when I need you, I'm going to let you know.
Right.
And
with very specific items.
Yes.
Yeah, because if Beth asks me to do something, I will absolutely do it.
Every time.
But I'm not much of a freestyler.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
Seeing what, totally out, just coming in and trying to make yourself useful.
Yeah. And so it's great because then actually in his, relaxation time, he gets a lot of, catches up on a lot of information that then he can download me on, like
exactly
news and politics and that kind of stuff. So then we can, then he can just give me like the Cliff's notes. Mm-hmm. Then I don't,
you don't have to read it
when I go talk to people about certain things because he's, briefed me on it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think having that acceptance of people's style, sometimes unwinding is really important. And so I remember that when we had young children, that's something that Reed usually wanted to go do something really physically active. But I think that it is reasonable to see your spouse, and you may do it one way, they may do it another way. And if those aren't intersecting, figuring out a compromise that you can say, all right, here's the 3 things I need you to do. And I'm going to be going through this other list because that's my strength, right? That's your strength. I was even thinking, sometimes the birth order thing that you guys have going, it can be really useful because he's okay taking that direction, right?
Yes.
Right with it. Right.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with Beth on what to do. I prefer it.
Yeah.
With certain stuff, right? Obviously, when it comes to work stuff, then of course I'm just going to try to do the best I can with my own decision making. But when it comes to a lot of the stuff around the house, like I'm totally fine with deferring to her and what instructions and directions she wants to give me. And if it's something that obviously I don't feel comfortable with, then I'll voice it. But for the most part, I think she's on the right track. So I'm cool with supporting.
I love that. I think that's really shows a lot of companionate compromise. So that's wonderful. Okay. I had asked if you guys wanted to think a little about a funny story. Do you have any funny stories you want to share and of an experience, any funny experiences you had together? Bad ones?
Yeah, we have lots. So.
You have a lot?
Now, that's the thing is like Beth and I were kind of thinking about just how many times we laugh with each other. And I think we laugh all the time.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
Because it's like one of the, I guess, topics is like, besides, loving somebody, what are some things that you think are important? And of course, it's us with laughter. And then it kind of goes into the funny stories. And some of them are just with us and some of them with the kids. And I think the one that we felt like was, we thought of a lot, but one of them is with our daughter. One of them is with us going on walks. So we've been pretty consistently going on walks. It was to go on this path, and it's kind of like you say it's not heavily trafficked, it's like pretty.
Yeah, it's not used at all. And it's like this amazing, like a 10-foot sidewalk that's shaded half the way.
Yeah.
So we walk by this guy, we see him, he's got all kinds of stuff, a bike, some headphones and whatever.
Yeah, and he's like sitting on a bench. There's like benches along this path with garbage cans and stuff.
Okay.
And we come across this guy sitting on the bench with his bike. And he had like a shoulder, like where you put your phone if you were listening to like your phone and music and
yeah, it was like a place for it to be held instead of in a pocket.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we keep walking by and I said, that would be kind of difficult to live like that. And so I observed that this person is homeless. And I said, man, like just to lay down on that bench to sleep, like I can barely sleep in a very comfortable bed. And so I started thinking about that stuff of just like the physical demand it would put on your body. And now this gentleman was probably in his late 60s, it looked like to me. And so that was just kind of the conversation I had with Beth. I said, man, that would be kind of tough just living on the streets. And of course, Beth then turns to me like, what are you talking about?
I thought he was crazy. I'm like, that guy is not homeless.
This guy is not homeless. Like he's training for probably something.
Probably training for a triathlon or something. I'm like, this is something my dad would do.
So she references her dad.
We are.
And I'm like, your dad would be like this. He would bring like like all his clothes and a backpack and like some stuff.
Yeah,
to
he
cook food
pointed
in.
out all these things he observed. I mean, we walked past this person.
Right.
I mean, we saw him for a couple
3
of
seconds or-
yeah. And I mean, we're arguing about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a heated argument or whatever. Yeah, like I promise you, I'm telling you, that guy was homeless. He had to be homeless. Like, started like piecing all this stuff because I'm looking at his clothes. Like you could tell, like all of that stuff was pieced together from like a Goodwill because like it doesn't match. He's got a Kansas shirt on. He has ASU shorts on. Like if you're a fan of a team, like you're not going to be mixing stuff, you know. So I'm like, this stuff was given to him. Like he has a different hat. I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, he's homeless. Like he's homeless, and that's okay. But anyways.
And it was probably a Friday early evening that we went on that walk. And so then Saturday morning we wake up, let's go ahead and go on a walk. So we go back to the same spot. And we come up to the bench and the man is sleeping on the bench.
Yeah.
So I had to eat everything.
But it wasn't like, I'm right, you're wrong. It was just like laughing at each other. I'm like, I can't believe you thought this guy was training for a triathlon. Like, never in 100 years would you ever look at this guy and go, oh, he's training for a triathlon. You might be like, maybe he's not homeless, but he's on hard times.
And so, I mean, we had just debated it for
a good solid hour.
And so every time we walk the path, it's like we just
laugh about it. Be like, yeah, that's where the guy. Remember where the guy was training for triathlon right here? So she just laughs.
That's your ongoing joke now every time. Yeah.
Totally.
Well, it's probably a little bit of an unusual spot, which was why you were taking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And I'm like, why would you pick here? I don't know. It was
for
me. It was
well.
Yeah.
I really love though the reference to the very different sporting.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I was starting to lock in on all the different tells.
That's so funny. Okay, now this one, I've asked you a little about something you've had to accept, but what about something you really, really love about your partner? Were you willing to share that? Just thinking of, of course, there's many, many things we love about our partners, but I always think it's fun to hear 1 or 2 things that you might want to share.
Well, I love Jordan's humor. He is so witty that, I mean, every time he just snaps something out, I'm so amazed. I'm like, how did you just come up with that? How did you create that? How did you put that together? And so I love that about him because that is, again, like, just it keeps us laughing.
It really does. Sometimes when you're in a heated moment, if there's any way to whip out something funny about it helps take the tension.
That's right. Bring the tip.
Yeah,
and I do love. He's really good at reading people. Just like noticing. I mean, you see somebody for 3 seconds and he's already like dialed it in what is happening, and I'm just like, I'd have no clue. And so I think
it's a
that's
superpower.
Yeah, it is. And I'm so amazed by that. And also I love that he's actually a very good gift giver. So that is something else that's kind of morphed over the years is like, I turn to him. I'm like, what should we do for the kids? And he can think, like he'll just sit there and think about it for like 15, 20 minutes and he just
has them.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good. That's so good. He's just really, he understands people. He gets people. He can read the room. And so I've just loved that about him because it's like such a strength to me and helps me.
And it helps you be part of a partnership that has that skill set.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. I love those. Those are terrific. Do you have some, Jordan, you'd like to share too? Okay.
Yeah. Well, of course, it's always really nice to have somebody that's a fan of yours at times, where so like Beth has no ego at all. Honestly, she doesn't. Like, of course, I think that she's gorgeous. Outside, of course, and inside. It's an amazing mom, amazing person, down to earth, easygoing, and doesn't think super highly of herself, and just amazing in that regard. There's very little ego, if any, I know I don't ever like to speak in absolutes, but she's a very small ego, definitely in comparisons to mine, and I think probably most people. So I think that's just something that's very admirable about Beth, that she is very service oriented, puts other people above herself all the time, especially with the kids and in our relationship, always puts me first. And so there's some of the things. The other thing is that I don't think there could be anybody that loves me as much or the way that Beth does. And so that just makes me feel so good and gives me, peace and confidence with myself. Sometimes I think like, what's wrong with her? But only for a little bit. I mean, because how much that she appreciates me and how much she loves me and how much she shows her love to me. So I think that that's something that I really appreciate about Beth is how I guess it's kind of a funny word, but like how safe she makes me feel and comfortable I feel. And I think that that's like a superpower of hers, is that her ability to love me no matter what. Because there's lots of times I'm sure I don't really deserve of her love, but she gives it anyways. And so I really, really appreciate that about Beth.
That's really nice, Beth. Those were some pretty sweet comments. You guys are clearly, I just love seeing that love and just sharing and really appreciating each other's strengths, because I think one of the things we love is when we're seen, when people see, the beautiful things about you. It's really nice that he sees those in you, and it's really nice that you see those in him. So that's really, really sweet. I love that. Okay, so I wanted to just ask you a little about how you decided on children. Learned. I wanted to know if there's something you can tell us that you've learned from your partner. Is there anything that pops to mind that you think, I used to not be very good at this, but then I watched my spouse do it 1,000 times and I got better at it, or, have learned? Is there things that you...
I would say for me is I used to be really impulsive with a lot of decisions, whether to buy something or go do something. And I think the stuff that weighs on you the most is like the financial decisions you make. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for Beth, I think that we would probably have lost a lot of money at different times, just because I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's go all in.
Yeah.
With every cent that we have, right?
Smart cookie.
And she's like, Jordan, have you asked these, 5 different questions about that investment? And I wouldn't even know to even ask those questions, let alone obviously ask them. So I'm like, well, no, I wouldn't even know that those were ones that you should ask. And so it's like, I just look at opportunities so much differently, just with some caution. I think that there's just more caution that I use before I kind of get myself into any type of situation. But yeah, that's something I feel like I've learned a lot from Beth. Is she's an analytical, smart person. Obviously, she's got a background in finance, accounting. And so I definitely have deferred to her on a lot of those kind of topics that we've come across over the years. But she's been right probably most of the time, about just being a little more cautious and doing a little more due diligence. So I just look at different things. I look at different opportunities from a different lens now because of the experiences that I've had with Beth over the years. And now, of course, when we first get married, there were some financial decisions we made that, I regretted, but I wouldn't change it per se because you learn from it. So yeah, that's probably something that sticks out to me that I've learned from Beth, is just kind of looking at things a little more cautiously, but still being willing to take some risks so that you can benefit from it, but just being a little more cautious in the process.
I love that. That's great. What about you, Beth?
I think one thing that I've definitely learned from Jordan is to not get so anxious or stressed or wrapped up in things that don't really matter. Like hosting some people, and I have this idea of all the things I want to have happen, and then they didn't all get executed, and I'm like panicking,
feeling worked up. So it just does that to you. You want it to be a certain,
and for what? I don't need to do that. And so he's kind of helped talk me off the ledge with a lot of things. And so it helps me get that perspective. I think over the years, I've kind of, am more aware of it now and can
adopt that posture a little easier to say, this probably, I'll check these 3 things off my list and not either do them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's nice. That's a very, very nice balance.
And Jordan's he's just a calming, feeling. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, he never notices it. So I guess it doesn't matter. Why am I going to stress over something that people aren't even going to know about,
Exactly. No, I think that's really nice. You're bringing really complementary things to each other. Okay, let's talk about kids. Tell me a little about the spacing of your kids and then just about your decision to have kids. Anything you can remember about that moment? Did you always know you wanted to have kids? Was it a big discussion? I know there's a little bit of spacing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we knew we always wanted to have kids.
Okay.
And we never really had an idea or went in with this expectation of
we had X amount of kids by X amount of time. It was we'll have kids and whatever feels right at the time, we'll hopefully follow those instincts. So, when we had our first kid, we were obviously elated with Adela and we knew we wanted to have more kids, but we weren't necessarily in a rush to have a second kid really quick.
We were enjoying the first one so much, and having her and seeing her as a toddler and, kind of that progression. And
so
we were just, we were just obsessed with it.
I know, also in love with him. You can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were so in love with her, how could we even love another kid as much as you love her?
Yeah.
I mean,
I felt bad for our second kid. I was like, there's no way I'm going to like him as much as I like my daughter. And of course, when we first said, found out we were pregnant, I think it's pretty customary that the dad wants to have a son and the wife wants to, the mom wants to have a daughter. And so I wanted a boy. And so when I first, realized that we were having a girl, I was kind of okay. I wasn't
well, we didn't know what we were having with the first one.
Oh, that's right.
We did not know.
Okay.
I did not find out.
That's fun.
I mean, it was in the delivery room.
But so it's in my mind. I'm thinking this. And then when she was born, it was I couldn't care less. I was like, why would I ever want a boy? Girls are the best,
right.
And then it was funny because when we're thinking about once we got pregnant with our second kid, I was thinking to myself, I could only envision having another girl. I couldn't even think about having a boy because I've only been obsessed and loved my daughter. So I was I wanted another girl at that point. And then we ended up having a boy, and then I was just as ecstatic. So it's just funny how, in your mind and then reality.
You imagine how you'll feel, but then you feel differently.
Yeah, totally.
How can my love get bigger to it just gets bigger and bigger.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the first one, we were married for close to 3 years before we were okay, let's kind of wing it now.
Yeah.
If we get pregnant, great. But we're not
this is the plan.
Yeah, we didn't time anything. It wasn't super intentional, but
let's see what happens.
Weren't trying, but weren't preventing. I mean, we knew that eventually, Beth should get pregnant.
Yeah.
And as long as everything medically is good with us.
Right. So the first one, Adela was born, and she was born right when we were hitting our 4-year mark of being married.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was born 3 years after her. And then our third one was born 5 years after.
5 years? Yeah, there's a little bit of
So there's a gap.
Great.
Yeah, and with the third one, and same with our second one, we weren't trying, weren't preventing. We were just seeing what happens. Whatever God wants to have happen will happen, was kind of the mentality, I think. And then with the third one, it was okay, we want to have then one. Yeah. Let's get cracking,
get busy.
Yeah. And that took some time, and then it happened, and it was.
Yeah. I think the third one was a little bit of stress just because we were being more intentional, and we kind of, decided that we would like to have a kid. And it probably took maybe a year or two longer than what we anticipated. Not that we took any great lengths to try to, we didn't go see a doctor about fertility or anything like that. But it was something that was just kind of on our mind of, we would like to, speak this into existence. And then of course, and do when you're done in order to have it. But
right. You really enjoyed her.
Yeah.
Beth shared some of the very funny and cute things about this little one.
Oh yeah.
She's awesome.
All three of them are they're all amazing. So awesome. So amazing. We love it. Well, I know you guys work very hard as parents, and it is a lot. I do want to ask a little about, I don't know if I think let's talk about your approach to working out conflict with one another. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we've had tons of it.
Do you have, I think everybody does. Like, I don't know how you can,
you can't be married for 20 plus years and not be
some conflict.
Pretty good at dealing with some conflict.
Yeah. Having conflict, right? And then a lot of times working through it is what brings you closer.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Completely. Part of the
yeah, because you kind of I've seen this before, right? And we've worked it out before. We can do it again. So almost you have a little bit of hope and confidence in it.
I mean, that's part of how you
that's part of the process, I think. If you're just hey, is this something that's, a deal breaker? Like, why are we even upset at sometimes, sometimes you can't help it yourself, help yourself but to be frustrated or upset about something. But I think that if you take a little bit of time and step back and you look at the situation from a long-term standpoint, you're like, well, we're not going to get a divorce. Like, we're not going to break up or separate or, sleep in different rooms over this. So I need
to knock it out.
That's right.
We haven't slept. I mean, got to work it out.
Not that we haven't slept.
Not that we haven't had some beef like that before.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the doghouse is the doghouse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I make sure that it's nice and comfortable because I knew I'd probably be there more than her.
Yep. But there's a king size bed in the other room, too.
Tempur-Pedic.
Right,
yeah, it's not bad.
I like that. It's good.
But I think with the conflict, it's knowing when the other person is agitated and knowing the approach to take with them.
Yeah.
So Jordan probably knows my way of letting him know I'm irritated is ignoring.
You shut down.
I shut down.
You shut down.
I will not speak. Yeah. I will not look at him. He knows he's in. He knows, and it's okay, give it some time, And I know, with him, I know when he's irritated or upset with something, you don't address it in that moment. You let it cool. You wait a couple hours, maybe a day, but you got to let the emotions die down before being able to actually have some conflict resolution happen.
Yeah, I would say that that's something that Beth and I have identified over the years is that if there is something that, we're at each other about, is usually for us to be able to just cool off for a little while. Because even though you could be right, if you're making somebody feel bad, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong.
Right.
It's well, how do you make this person feel? Well, if you're emotional and they're emotional, you're probably going to make each other feel pretty bad. Best way probably to help each other get over something, or at least not get under each other's skin as much, is just take a step back, ponder it, think about what your role is in it, and also think about how you can approach it and resolve it. Because that there's probably effective ways to resolve conflict and there's ineffective ways. And I think that most times if you're both emotional, it's not effective. It's ineffective. And you can
physiologically, you're just too worked up.
Yeah.
Right. You're just really.
So logic isn't going to penetrate that at the time because you're emotionally invested in it to the point where it doesn't matter what logic or who's right or wrong comes to. It's not even a factor because of the way that you're feeling. And so, at least for us, what has worked is that we just kind of recognize that both of us are not in a place to resolve it. And first step for us is to be able to just have time and some distance on that particular situation so that we come back in a better place mentally to be able to address it and kind of process it and work through it.
And do you always come back? Because that's the part that...
Not always.
Oh, sometimes you don't.
Well, it depends on what it is.
Oh, sometimes it's so stupid.
Sometimes it's so
stupid. So dumb. It's okay.
And I'm
I got mad or something dumb.
It's not worth it.
This doesn't need to be spoken about. We both know that was dumb.
We're idiots.
Yeah.
Just idiots.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like a couple hours later or a day later, if it's still eating at you, then we're having a conversation about it.
Yeah, especially if it's some type of pattern of behavior that needs to be addressed. So we're not saying, hey, don't resolve, certain situations. But if it's something dumb like, hey, who left the peanut butter out on the counter?
Right.
Like, does it really matter? Like, not a big deal. Like, I could be irritated in the moment because I spent all this time cleaning and I just had this big talk with my kids about how important it is to pick up after yourself. And then my spouse.
Yeah, or you got a flat tire on the way home. And, it could be something else actually bothering you.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And many times it is. There's something else going on where you didn't get enough sleep, or something at work was stressing you out, or your kids were misbehaving, or your sister's this, or who knows.
Yeah.
And so we recognize that, I think, better than we had when we were first married.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times you feel like you also take these different social cues from other people about, like, some of the people have this kind of ideal that never go to go to sleep angry. Like, you have to talk out. I'm like thinking to myself, like, if we had adopted that, we would have never gotten to sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
and nothing would have gotten worked out. But in those moments.
If it works for you, great. But at the same time, you got to figure out what works for you. So for us, it wasn't to talk it all through while we're emotional. It was, hey, go to sleep, and tomorrow wake up, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail. And for us, it has worked out that way. But I think when we were first married, there was like all of these different things.
There's a lot of advice about going to bed angry. We got a lot of advice.
And it was like these absolutes too. It was like, never do this, always do this. And you're thinking to yourself, like, why? Like,
well, that's why.
Yeah, you can't always do something, but you don't know any different. So you're kind of just taking it at face value. And then all of a sudden you start to get down about yourself because you just followed the advice of somebody that seems to have a pretty successful marriage, and it's not working for you. So you must have a bad marriage, or you must be a bad husband, or you must be a bad wife.
Right.
Reality is that advice doesn't apply to everyone.
Right.
And clearly I know that now, after I've implemented it, it didn't work for me. So I'm not going to keep, keep applying it. I'm
with you on that one, Jordan. I'm telling you, because we used to do that. We would argue. We would try to not go to bed mad, and I'm telling for us, nothing great happens after 10 p.m. If you're,
ain't no chance, and you're by yourselves, like.
Yeah, I know. My new thing that I've thought is that if we're too mad, because my spouse really he prefers to not go to bed mad. He'd like to get it worked out.
Yes.
So we can. I have said, I'll hold your hand and we can lay here in bed and I'll hold your hand, but I'm not talking to you.
Yeah. Hey,
till tomorrow.
Get the affection and the love that he needs, and then you get to kind of like process
tomorrow when we're not mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know.
We're on the same page as that.
It definitely, that's a piece of advice you get a lot. A lot of people feel that that's the way to go.
Yeah.
To not go to bed angry, but I think it's better to get a good night's. For myself, better to get a good night.
And if you're able to do it, then great. But at the same time, like, don't be stuck on it, as I guess what I would advise people to do. Like, there's some advice that's out there, and if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, adapt and make it work for you. Because forcing yourself to, operate a certain way just because somebody else has told you to or it worked for them, it could drive you crazy.
Right. Yeah, that's their yardstick. You make your own out of the two of you, because you're building something that's special just between the two of you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. So what do you think, about, what do you think other people could learn from your marriage? Is that something that if you think, how has our marriage been different from other marriages that I've seen? Or what do you feel like is your secret sauce, your special?
I think some of it is intentional. I think some of it is luck, blessed, where Beth and I are compatible. And we haven't always been compatible, but I think that the foundation has been there. I think that we have similar goals. And
wait, when you say you haven't always been compatible, like what do you mean by that?
What I mean is that I think that the little things that we've kind of discussed, that we weren't always getting along, because I would take the approach of, hey, we need to talk this through. We're not going to sleep until, all bad feelings have subsided.
Right.
And so you're having this conflict and you're trying to force some things to work the way that you thought they should, or you perceive that they should. And as time has gone on, we're like, okay, if we don't always try to adapt to what works for other people, and we kind of do what works for us, there's all this other stuff that we really have in common and that we really appreciate about each other. And we're not focused on the little small stuff as much. So I guess that's, I don't know if that
Focusing.
swing.
Where your focus is. Yeah. Saying, where is your focus lie?
And I think there's been times too over 20 years, you know, where it was, I mean, I recall we'd have, you know, months at a time where it was like constant irritation.
Yeah.
You know, like we are not getting along. We are arguing for months at a time. And then months stretches of just greatness and happiness and joy and getting along with everything. And then months of arguing again, you know, so it's,
and sometimes outside stressors are contributing to that whole thing, you know, new baby, you know, changes in work schedules or status, and you know, other stressors can really stress a marriage, right?
Right. And, you know, now over 20 years, I'd say, I mean, those ups and downs have like, they've gotten a lot less, and there's just a lot more consistent.
We get along a lot better now than we ever have.
Yeah.
But I can say that I love Beth more now than I ever have. Which is, you know, it's obviously, that's again, like, I feel very blessed to have Beth. And I think it takes a lot. And I think that you got to like each other. I know that sounds kind of cliche, like, oh, like each other. It's like, I know people love each other, but you got to like each other. I think that you got to find common ground. I think it's important for you also to probably have little hobbies maybe that you have on your own, but also maybe with each other. You know, one of the things that Beth and I do pretty regularly is that we'll go walking together or hiking together. We had been pretty consistent with working out with one another. My brother had a gym before, and we'd go and work out with him. He kind of trained both of us, but we enjoyed doing something physical together. And it was just kind of like built more camaraderie and more friendship with each other. And it's funny because I'd asked Beth this before. I said, how many couples do you know that go on long walks with each other on a regular basis that have a bad relationship? I don't know of any. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but I'm just saying.
That's a really good one. That's why Rita and I have gone on long walks always. Yeah. Even when the kids were little, we'd throw them in a stroller and take them with. And it's an opportunity to talk and reconnect at the end of the day.
So I think it's just kind of interesting because every couple I observe that goes on walks together, like, they have a good relationship. Like every couple that's in our neighborhood that's walking, I'm like, they're getting along.
Right. They can, they enjoy being together. You know, may have a lot to talk about that day, or maybe.
Why not? Maybe it's just being by each other, and you just kind of got in this rhythm and routine, and something's on your mind. It gives you plenty of time to be able to kind of address it and talk about it. But, you know, anyway, so that's kind of been something that's worked for us.
Well, and I think, you know, having a friendship where it's like, he's like my best friend. Who do I want to tell my most embarrassing moments to? It's like, I'm going to tell him, right? You know, or just funny things that, like, he's the person I want to call it and talk to about it.
Yeah. And I think that for us, it's worked out too, is that we're not, sometimes people are like competitive with each other, whether it could be in a career or it could be who's better at pickleball or something. Like, I've seen that where it's relationships where like people are getting irritated with each other because they want to beat their spouse at something. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you talking? Like, why would that even be something that would be cross your mind? Now, it doesn't for me. And I think that I'm blessed that way, that that's just something that I'm not consumed by. Like, I want Beth to be successful in whatever that she does. And if she does it better than me, then cool. I think it's neat, you know, like, oh yeah, she beat me. Where I think maybe when we were younger, I mean, just a silly thing, like, she got paddleboarding down quicker than I did. Yeah. You know, and I was like, okay, like, hey, like, I'm the athletic one, like, I got better balance. And of course, Beth kicked my butt. Like, she got up and was in Florida on a paddleboard in seconds, and me, I'm falling all over the place. Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where I'm like, wow, she's way better at this than me. And you know what? I'm going to be okay with this. I don't have an ego. Like,
and you're going to be okay with it.
Yeah. Because you could see where that would cause a wedge, it could, where like the husband gets mad, like, oh,
Feels
they're
threatened.
stupid. Like,
Feel-
it's not big enough. The reason why you could balance it because you're way lighter and I'm big, Yeah.
Trying to
Now,
jump.
if she rubbed it in my face, I probably would have come up with those excuses. But luckily for me, she was gracious at being much better at the paddleboarding. But there's like a lot of those type of examples in a relationship where these small little things can really start to create a problem with one another. If you were being competitive with them, like I think a healthy competition is fine, but like if it's to the point where you're starting to think less of your spouse, or
there starts to be
threatened
contention.
in some way instead of in admiration. Yeah. Admiration's really.
And that's where I think, like the friendship aspect is that you have a respect for each other. How are you going to talk to your spouse? Not, because I would never be rude and disrespectful to a best friend of mine.
Right.
So why would I be rude and disrespectful to my husband,
Your partner,
even if he's irritating me at the moment?
You be as polite as possible.
Yeah. Treat, the golden rule, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important if you can live by that. And I know it's a catchphrase that's easy and gets thrown around, but if you really can adapt that.
But that's something that has taken time too, again, it's not like
all of this stuff takes time.
this was day one. We were,
But
Yeah, that's actually, I was going to say, what would you, if you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, would you tell them anything? Would you tell yourself something like, okay, here's going to be the top 5 ways you're going to have to change in order, here's how you will change, and you can do it easy or you can do it hard, What would you tell your younger self? Do you have anything that you'd tell your younger self?
Well, I joked around. I said I would tell them like from a non-relationship piece, but actually would kind of impact. I say buy Bitcoin, right? Because when it was like 0.1 cent or whatever, I was like, okay, so there's that one. But outside of telling myself, that's funny. I would say that for me, it would be is let go of your ego more, because I had way more of an ego when we were first married than Beth has ever had. Like I mentioned before, is that she doesn't really have one, and I've had a big one. When we're first married, of just like things that I would expect of her, and I wouldn't expect that stuff of myself. And I would say, just have more humility. Like you don't always have to be right. You might think you're a smart person and maybe you're technically right, but at the same time, the way that you're going about it is completely wrong. That being kind and getting along is more important than being right. And I think a lot of times I wanted to be right more than I wanted anything else.
How do you think your younger self would have responded to that advice?
I don't know. I think that if it was
coming from you,
I think I'd be like, whoa, like maybe he's onto something, I think it would be such a startling kind of situation, right? Yeah, where I would hopefully say this is completely unusual that I'm able to talk to myself this way, and hopefully I should listen.
Right.
But I think that, when you're young, you have to learn, by experience. And so because our relationship is where it's at and we're so happy and content where it's at, we don't really look back on anything and go, oh, like I really wish I would have done this or said this or done that, because we're happy with the end result so far.
Yeah, exactly. And no one, there are things to learn. That's just part of going through the life experience, is learning as you go along.
Right. Yeah. And that's what, like, we kind of talked about early on, like, when we were first married, we bought like 2 brand new cars, which was like financially a really horrible decision. Right. And but
they were way outside of our
budget.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just we bought 2 new cars. We bought cars that like people making 5 times more money than us are talking about.
We had no business buying.
We should never have a new car. Like cars should never be there should be a new car for us. It should have been a very used car. Right. Bailey Ryan.
I think we learned so much in that experience, like
just the burden of having these payments and nothing really to show for when it's done, because it's like now you got this car that's worth $2,000 by the time you pay it off.
Well, and we had decided, we were like, we are keeping these cars.
Okay.
Like, I mean,
We're going to drive it, like,
Just drive until they
Oh
don't.
yeah, you're
Still 250
Yeah, I just got rid of one like a couple of years ago. I sold it for $1,000.
Okay.
You know,
then maybe
we spent 60 grand on it, I think, but
not the best return on an investment, but
yeah, but it was some like after the fact, we were like, we probably shouldn't have done that. And then it was like, you know what, we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And that we were together on that decision, you know, because it could have been something that put a huge wedge between us.
Right.
You know, me being the financial person and
Yeah.
him being the impulsive.
yeah, I'm like, this car's cool. Always matters. You know, like,
But it was like, you know what? Okay, we did this together. We made the decision together. We're going to learn from it together, and we're going to enjoy the heck out of these cars for the next 10 years. And we did.
And you did. You made that decision. You didn't let it become a
incredible.
Right.
yeah.
Do you have anything, Beth, that you would tell your younger self if she would listen?
Well, she's perfect.
That's
So that's the other thing that I would recognize. Like if I could go back and say, your wife is perfect.
Yeah.
You're not right anyway. So no,
Yeah.
don't even try to be right.
Oh.
I don't know. This was a hard question.
If you don't have anything,
Skip me on this one.
okay, that's good. I love that. I think that's good. I guess I think we've covered everything. I guess I just wonder if you have any last, comments about what you think makes a marriage last. What you think, if there's anything you haven't shared with us yet about what is it that, because it's a long game, right? It's
Yeah.
a long.
I think that, you have to have similar, I think that it's important to have a similar vision for your life and similar goals. They don't have to be exactly the same, but I think that it's important for you to be gravitating towards kind of the same direction. Of course, we are religious and we are more traditional in our values, and that helps us. But I think that, even if you're not on the same page on everything, there's ways to be able to overcome it. But I think that you got to be committed to it. And one of the things is, like, I feel like Beth and I are completely committed to each other. And, if you are truly committed to each other, you can work it out. It might look different for you than other people. It might take longer, or maybe it's quicker. But I think that you have to be committed to each other and have similar vision and goals. And if you have those, I think it'll work out. But I think when your commitment wanes is when other, issues start to pop into your relationship, whether you're unfaithful or you're just selfish or whatever it might be, to where it makes it unbearable for the other one to endure. But I think if you're truly committed to each other and you have similar goals and a vision for your family and for your life, things will work out.
I'd also say having flexibility, being flexible, like don't have such a hard line on things,
Good one.
because does it matter? You got to decide if this is this a make or break? If it's not a make or break, have a little flexibility, and also just acceptance, accepting things, accepting people, accepting a situation for what it was, learning from it, moving forward. I think that was, something too, when we were first dating and then getting married, and, it was, is there progress? Are we moving forward? And I think if you kind of have that, then it helps you be more compatible. It helps you get along. It helps you understand the other person a little bit better. And, when you just accept them for who they are, then it really just alleviates a lot of stress on you to try to get them to be
Fix
somebody
them.
else. Fix them. Yeah,
That's right.
I know. I heard a comedian the other day saying, my wife and I have had the same project for the last 7 years we've been married, and that project is me. And I thought that
It was like, it will work if he's accepting of the role, right? So if he wasn't willing to kind of be a part of that, then maybe it would be
yeah.
a lot less than 7 years of marriage.
He says, I'm like one of those buildings in Manhattan that constantly has the scaffolding and it never goes away.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Beth and Jordan, I have to tell you, I've so enjoyed this. And you guys I really appreciate how much thought you gave to the things that we've talked about, and also just your willingness to share, because I think that marriage is not, it's not just a walk in the park. It takes a lot of work. And clearly you've been putting in a lot of work and over the years, and just really staying so committed to each other. I just really, really appreciate it.
And thank you. Thanks for having us. We appreciate the time.
Yeah, well, we've loved it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.